Hi there, this is my 5 to 10 minute video assignment as required by assignment 2B, Old Testament Literature Torah. With my advisor's permission, this was an adapted assignment in which I utilized the book Introduction to the Hebrew Bible by John J. Collins. I'm going to be using the Longman and Dillard text for the next assignments that recommended that particular book. The Collins text that I used for this particular assignment has a much different perspective, a much different flavor than the Longman and Dillard text, and it provided me with a bit of information, a bit of a broader understanding of many Torah-related conversations that are taking place in the academic world. So here is the assignment. In a 5 to 10 minute video or live defense, first explain whether God's plan of creation or his plan of redemption is the more ultimate and why. The plan of creation in Genesis is significant, but the central defining story in the entire Hebrew Bible turns out to be a redemption story. And that redemption story is found in the Exodus. I think us in the 21st century Western evangelical world tend to see the creation account, or creation accounts as many scholars would say. We tend to see the creation account not only as foundational to our faith, but as some sort of scientific document. But in ancient Judaism, it is the account of the Exodus that is the foundational story of God's people, and I think this remains true today. In ancient times, it was particularly important for people in the northern kingdom, but later it became important for all Jews everywhere across the world. More than any other story, it has helped explain what it means to be a follower of the Israelite God. Second part of the video assignment, explain which Old Testament event reveals God as Israel's Savior. Again, we come back to the Exodus. In the Exodus account, we see a God that sticks up for the underdog, that frees slaves, that crushes empires, that kills the enemies of his people. This story is important because it provides God's people with the opportunity to practice rest for the first time in hundreds of years, meaning that they're no longer slaves. Interestingly enough, following the liberation of the Hebrew slaves from Egyptian bondage, they would again find themselves in bondage over and over and over again throughout their history, until relatively recently, actually. Reflecting back on the Exodus is not only God's people looking back, but frequently has been them looking forward to a time when once again God would liberate them. And when they practice Sabbath today, throughout the world, they are reminded of the Exodus account. Third part of the video assignment, explain the structure of the Sinaitic covenant. To paraphrase John J. Collins in chapter 6, page 125 of his book, Introduction to the Hebrew Bible, the big liberation story of God's people from slavery comes to its fulfillment when God gives Moses the law at Mount Sinai. Not only is slavery behind them, part of who they were, but the law demonstrates that their life with God is ahead of them. History and law combined create the Sinai covenant. And this is the covenant between God and his people. The blessings of this covenant will depend on the willingness of God's people to follow the requirements of the law. And the final aspect of this assignment, explain the significance of Israel's sacrificial cultus. How do they practice the sacrificial elements of their religion? So sacrificial religious practice is not something that's unique in the world's faiths, but an Israelite religious practice, it provided an external, public expression of the people's gratitude to God, as well as a way for them to recognize that they owe God a great debt that they could never pay. It was the mechanism, and continues to be in parts of the Jewish world, it was the mechanism through which God's people repented of sin. It was expressed primarily through burnt offering and blood offering. Something of great value to the people was given by God's people to God. I hope this fulfills the requirement. Thank you.